Happy October. I'm Laurie Gaylor, and welcome to Freethought Radio.
And I'm Dan Barker, your friendly neighborhood atheist. This is the weekend of October 1st and 2nd, 2010. Freethought Radio broadcasts and streams from the Progressive Talk, the Mike 92.1 in Madison, Wisconsin. And we're also airing in Atlanta, Anchorage, Grand Rapids, and Monterey, California. And, of course, we're podcasting everywhere. Freethought Radio is the weekly production of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. We're the nation's largest organization of atheists and agnostics. We work to keep religion and government separate, and we work to educate the public, you listeners, about the views of non-theists.
And so, Dan, you were on the road last week. Tell us quickly how that went when you were interviewed. You were taped by 60 Minutes Australia in Los Angeles.
That's why I had to miss the show last week. It was a last-minute thing. The 60 Minutes of Australia is doing a investigative story about the canonization in the middle of October 17th, of Australia's first saint. Her name is Mary MacKillop. And since I had debated the Archbishop of Sydney, Cardinal George Pell, back in March, they were interested in my take on that whole issue. And so we met in Los Angeles. I was just there. I flew across country for a half a day to meet with them for this interview. And it was really a lot of fun. They have done their homework. In fact, they were partly responsible for exposing Cardinal George Pell's involvement in the cover-up of some of the pedophilia scandals there in Australia.
So we don't know when that's going to run yet, huh?
Probably in a week or two, just before or at the canonization.
And we have a lot of news to cover before we get to our interview with the Supreme Court veteran reporter Linda Greenhouse.
But we'd be remiss not to comment on the Pope's comments on us atheists when he visited England, and he caused an uproar there 2 weeks ago.
Even in our own lifetime, we can recall how Britain and her leaders stood against the Nazi tyranny that wished to eradicate God from society and denied our common humanity to many, especially to the Jews, who were thought unfit to live.
He's hard to understand there, but what you just heard Ratzinger say was this: even in our own lifetimes, we can recall how Britain and her leaders stood against a Nazi tyranny that wished to eradicate God from society and denied our common humanity to many, especially the Jews, who were thought unfit to live.
Well, Nazis did not wish to eradicate God from society. On the contrary, they wished to eradicate non-Christians from society. They wore Gott mit uns, God with us, that means, on their buckle belts. And this is the supreme irony. Adolf Hitler was born and died a Roman Catholic. He has never been excommunicated by the Roman Catholic Church. In Mein Kampf, he said what Jesus had started, he would finish. Talk about the big lie. It seems the Pope has adopted the technique of the Nazis.
In his speech in the UK warning against aggressive forms of secularism, the Pope also said, and we'll read this rather than play the audio, which is really hard to understand. Here's what the Pope said. As we reflect on the sobering lessons of atheist extremism of the 20th century, let us never forget how the exclusion of God, religion, and virtue from public life leads ultimately to a truncated vision of man and of society, and thus a reductive vision of a person and his destiny.
Okay, so what's a more insulting vision or limiting vision of society, saying that every knee shall bow, we are all sinners and worms who must submit to a supernatural force, or the Freethought point of view that puts people and human rights over religious superstition and dogma? You know, who's extreme? Atheists and agnostics who believe in separation of church and state, or the Catholic hierarchy that seeks to ban all embryonic stem cell research worldwide, to ban all legal abortion and legal contraception worldwide, that seeks to ban civil rights and marriage equality worldwide.
And also let's comment on one of the Roman Catholic candidates in this country who's garnering a lot of headlines and really maybe proving the old adage that any publicity may not be good publicity.
We are talking of none other than Christine O'Donnell running for Senate in Delaware.
I dabbled into witchcraft. I hung around people who were doing these things.
Having fun?
I'm not making this stuff up. I know what they told me they do.
Well, what did they do?
I mean, and one of my dates, my first date.
Whoa, wait, I want to hear about this.
One of my first dates with the witch was on a satanic altar, and I didn't know it. And I mean, there's little blood there and stuff like that.
So she dabbled in witchcraft. What can we add to that? Except, let's play some more clips of famous comments made by the youthful Christine O'Donnell on Bill Maher's Politically Incorrect.
Evolution is a myth, and even Darwin himself.
Evolution is a myth?
You know what?
Have you ever looked at a monkey?
Well, then why are monkeys still evolving into humans? And Darwin himself.
I think she's evidence of the fact that evolution still has a long way to go.
But we've saved the best for last, and here's Ms. O'Donnell. Here she is perfectly in line with the official teachings of the Roman Catholic Church, which has no shame in intruding and meddling into the most personal of actions.
The Bible says that lust in your heart is committing adultery. So you can't masturbate without lust. The reason that you don't tell them that masturbation is the answer to AIDS and all these other problems that come with sex outside of marriage is because, again, it is not addressing the issue. You're going to be pleasing each other. And if he already knows what pleases him and he can please himself, then why am I in the picture?
Well, I suppose Christine would be opposed to organ solos as well. But enough hilarity. Switching gears. We interviewed a member of FFRF's new Tulsa chapter last month about the new billboard that says atheism is okay in Oklahoma, which the chapter has put up right now in Tulsa.
Tonight, a billboard battle brewing on the Broken Arrow Expressway. An atheist group put one up 2 weeks ago, and now a company has countered with a billboard of its own. News on 6 reporter Chris Wright joins us live to explain. Chris?
Well, Jennifer, the Freedom from Religion Foundation admits it's advertising here over my shoulder to draw attention. So far, it's working, and the group says it doesn't mind the controversy that comes with it. The billboard reads, "Atheism is okay in Oklahoma." But members of the group Freedom from Religion Foundation say that's not always the case, and that's why they chose to pay for the sign.
We want to let people know that they're not alone, that there are other people that are sane in this state, too, that not everybody in Oklahoma is superstitious.
The billboard was put up next to the BA near 15th Street 2 weeks ago. Its location, though, was not the group's first choice. Its members initially approached Whistler Outdoor Advertising.
When you have 80, 100,000 people driving past those boards every day, they see the name on that sign. So we look at our core values. Does it match up with who we are? And can we put it up there and feel good about it?
Whistler decided it couldn't, and this week even opted to display a direct response to the atheism ad. Among the ads displayed on its 10 digital billboards are ones that read, "God is more than okay in Oklahoma, and why settle for okay? God promises more."
Some decisions you make because of what you believe, and this was one of those decisions that we thought was in the best interest of our business and our community and for us as individuals.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation says it has no problem with the dueling billboards.
They want to impose their belief system on me, whereas I don't want to impose anything that I believe on them.
And while he doesn't believe in God, Bill Dusenberry does subscribe to the belief that any publicity is good publicity.
Kid's going to say, "Daddy, what's an atheist?" And Daddy's, "Oh, those are really bad people you don't want anything to do with." But then the kid might go home and look it up.
Now, the sign here also references one of Oklahoma's original senators, Thomas Gore. Freedom from Religion says he was the first open atheist in U.S. history to serve in the Senate. Now, this billboard will remain up here on 15th Street for the next 2 weeks. Chris Wright, the News on 6 tonight.
I'm Dan Barker with Annie, Laurie, Gaylor for Freethought Radio, reaching out on behalf of the Freedom from Religion Foundation to the unmasked masses. We'll be right back to talk about a fascinating new poll this past week showing that atheists and agnostics know a lot more about the Bible than believers.
When they speak of ghosts and devils, I try to keep my mouth shut. They believe in talking snakes, but they'll say I'm the one who's nuts. In this big wide country, there there ought to be room for many other views. Is everybody crazy? I've got those free thinker blues.
I'm Dan Barker with Annie, Laurie, Gaylor, and maybe today we have the Freethinker Blues. We'll talk about a survey about freethinkers. We're co-presidents of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which not only broadcasts, but we also litigate and we publish. Freethought Today, a newspaper, and we publish books. The first book the Freedom from Religion Foundation published, and still a big seller, is by Ruth Hermance Green. It's called The Born-Again Skeptic's Guide to the Bible, which takes off where Thomas Paine's Age of Reason left off.
And that brings us to that big news of this week, revealed by the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life, that finds that people who scored the highest on Pew's simple 32 questions about religion were atheists, agnostics, and two religious minorities, Jews and Mormons. These questions were on the Bible, Christianity, and other world religions, religious figures, and constitutional principles governing religion.
As we've always said, the Bible is the bestseller that nobody, at least few believers, ever read. But we can attest that our membership is biblically literate. Many of our members came to reject religion because they read the Bible, not just those palatable passages, but the entire Bible, cover to cover, at least have studied its entire range of claims and teachings.
Now, I've read the Bible cover to cover. It didn't make me an atheist because I was already a third-generation freethinker, but it did freak me out because I didn't want that book dictating my life and interfering with women's rights. And it's why I wrote a book about Bible sexism with the idea of informing the modern generation of women about the dangers of biblical literalism and how important it is to keep religion out of government and keep their dogma off of our bodies.
And I know from experience, Annie Laurie, that you know much more about the Bible than the average pew sitter does. Your book is called Woe to the Women, The Bible Tells Me So, and that's also available from ffrf.org.
Along with Ruth Green's classic Born Again Skeptic.
And we just have a minute to include some of the Pew's findings. 53% of Protestants could not identify Martin Luther as the man who started the Protestant Reformation. 45% of Catholics didn't know that their church teaches that the consecrated bread and wine in communion are not merely symbols, but actually become the body and blood of Christ. 43% of Jews didn't know that Maimonides, one of the foremost rabbinical authorities and philosophers, was Jewish. The question about Maimonides was one that the fewest people answered correctly, but 51% knew that Joseph Smith was Mormon, and 82% knew that the Mother Teresa was Roman Catholic.
And is the Pope Catholic? And now people can go take our Bible quiz, right, Dan? We have one at ffrf.org and take the quiz. It's right at our homepage.
There's 50 questions of how much do you know about the Bible.
And you can also take a quiz on how much do you know about separation of church and state. But you can also look at our books because freethinkers are very literate about the Bible and about other holy books. That's why we're freethinkers.